guys, what's going on? Welcome to DJ TLM TV. My name is DJ TLM and this is my review of the Numark NS7II. Now this controller has been out for quite a while, but I finally got a chance to try it out. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at this beastly flagship controller for Serato DJ right now. So here it is, guys, the NS7II. Once again, a very large controller. It's the same size as the original NS7, and Numark has good reason to make this a large controller. I mean, first of all, you have these two 7-inch platters with a motor. That's going to take up a lot of space, but you can also tell that the NS7II just has a lot of features. I mean, you have a lot of knobs and buttons and faders and pads. So because of the size, they were able to give it a nice spacious layout where everything just has its own place, which means that you won't accidentally bump into a button when you're trying to move a fader. And in my case, that's going to lead to a better workflow. Now, I prefer the larger controllers. They have a more professional look, but more importantly, a more professional feel. This really feels like you're working with two units and a mixer. Especially if you're already used to using DJ sets with turntables or CDJs, those are quite large units. This is going to give you that same feel because of that size. Now, the NS7II is made out of metal. That's going to add to that professional feel. But when it comes to mobility, keep in mind that it's a very large controller and it's metal, so it's very heavy. You don't want to carry this around in a bag all day unless you're looking for an extra workout. So keep that in mind. Now the NS7II is the new and improved version of the NS7, which was made for Serato Itch, and the NS7II has been tailor-made to work with Serato DJ, and you might recognize some of the features that you see on other Serato DJ controllers. Most noticeably, of course, the 8 performance pads at the bottom, and these pads were made by Akai and they're actually MPC Pads. If you're not familiar with Akai MPC, go Google that legendary line of sample drum computers, and a lot of big hits were made using the MPC. So these are MPC pads and they're illuminated, as you can tell. Now what I want to do is take you through some of the main features. I'm going to show you a feature that is unique to the NS7II, and of course, in my opinion, the main event right here in the middle, the moving platters. Now actually I'm going to start with the moving platters because this is what attracted me to the NS7, and it's also what attracts me to the NS7II. Especially if you're coming from turntables and you want to get into the digital game, this is going to give you all the technological advantages of using a controller, but you still get that turntable feel. And if you've never used turntables, it might still be a very pleasant experience to be able to use moving platters in a controller. Now, there's a real motor in there. They really move. That just feels great. It feels like you're using a turntable. And of course, it's a smaller platter. It's 7 inches. A real turntable will be 12 inches. But speaking from experience with the NS7, it only took me a couple of days, like 2 or 3 days, before I was confident enough to do a public show, a public performance with the NS7. So it didn't take me that long to adapt to the smaller platter. You only have to adjust your movements, especially if you're into scratching and turntablism. It's a little bit different, but you get used to that pretty fast. So I love it. I mean, it feels like a real turntable. The top of the platter is actually a piece of vinyl, so your hand is touching vinyl and it's moving. And you have your little marker right there. They simulated a sticker so that you have your visual cue as well. And I just love it. It really feels good. You have the ability to adjust the torque. You can set it to a higher or a lower torque to fit your personal preference. And it just feels really good. I mean, for normal mixing, I really like it, and especially if you're also into turntablism. Let me just do a little bit of backspinning real quick. Let me switch to my other 2 channels right here. I have the same track loaded, I think. Yeah. I love that. I just love that. Okay, let me get back to my other two tracks right now. And yeah, that's enough for now. I might do a separate video doing more turntablism stuff, but just know that it really feels good. Next up, I want to get to these pads right here. The 8 pads control and trigger a lot of features inside the Serato DJ software, and all the usual suspects are here. You have your hot cues, your roll, your loop, your sampler, your slicer, and you also get a row of secondary functions. So first of all, you have the hot cues. If you're not familiar with hot cues, cue points are markers that you can place anywhere in the track, and you can recall those markers to go straight to that point of the song. Now, I always make cue points at the first beat. So if I want my sticker to be here at 12 o'clock and I want my beat to start here, now the track will start there. So you can use it for cue drumming, and it just works really well. Now, if I press it again, you notice that the color just changed. Now I'm in the secondary mode, and this is cue loops. Now, cue loops works the same as hot cues. All my hot cues are still here, but in this case, it will go to that cue point, and it will also automatically initiate a loop. So if it's playing and I press 1, it will loop. And with this right here, these 2 buttons I can use to change the parameter and make the loop shorter or longer. Now, you can also tell that the one that is activated turns a different color. And this is a cool thing because you can always instantly see if a loop is active and deactivated again by touching it again. And you can also make your cue points on the fly. So if I want to make a new cue point right there, I can just press that button and now I have a new cue point, or hold shift, press it again, and it's deleted. So you can always make your cue points on the fly, and the same with the cue loops. Next, you have the auto roll and roll. Auto roll starts the roll when you press the pad, and then it will only stop once you press it again. So and once again, if you activate it, it changes color so you know which one is active. Now, I prefer the normal roll. Now you see I go to the secondary function and all the color changes. Now I'm in normal roll mode, and now the roll is only active as long as I keep the pad pressed. So I just like that better, but you have the option to do the auto roll as well. Now you have your loops. Well, let me delete these real quick. Normally, if you don't have any loops saved, this will be empty, but you have the ability to make loops right here with these pads. So this is the start of your loop. This is where your loop ends. So let me press play again, and I'll make a loop right now. There's a loop. I can now save the loop to one of these pads. So I'm going to save the loop right there, and I can stop the loop again. And with this button, I can recall it. With this pad, I can recall the loop at any time. And even if I press it off beat, it'll still take me straight to that loop. Back to the loop. Turn it off again. Now I'll make a second loop right now, and save that right there. And now I have the ability to choose any one of these loops and recall them by pressing this button. So pretty cool to make loops on the fly, and especially when you're doing some live remixing, or you're almost at the end of your song and you quickly want to make a loop. You can do that manually within seconds. Now the sampler, if you're familiar with Serato DJ, you know that it doesn't sample, but it plays samples that you load into Serato DJ's sample banks. So right now I just have samples loaded in these under these 6 pads. So right now the sampler is playing over the main output. So even if all my channels are down, it will still play the samples. If you want to, you can also assign the sampler to one of the channels. That way you can play with the fader when you're playing with the samples, and it also allows you to run some effects over that channel and in that case it means you're also running the effects over the samples from the sampler. So you have that option. If you press it again, the color changes, and now I'm in velocity sampler mode. The samples are still here, but now it all depends on how hard you press the pad. So if I press it real soft, it plays it real soft, and you press it harder, it plays it louder. Last, you have the slicer, and the slicer does exactly what it says. It slices the beat up into parts, 8 parts. So when the track is playing, you can actually count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can repeat any of those 8 parts by pressing that pad. Allows you to play around with that beat. Now if you press it again, you're still in slicer mode, but now you're in slicer mode and it loops the section that is now playing. So it's still playing the 8 parts, but now it will loop just this little part. It will stay at that section, and then you can still do the, and here you can also change the parameters to make it shorter or longer. Pretty cool stuff. Now let me take that back to the cue points. That was the pad section. So in pad mode, you can do a lot of stuff and control a lot of stuff inside Serato DJ. Now on this player, you have some normal functions like the play mode, and you have your pitch slider right here. You also have a pitch bend mode. Now when I mix, and for instance, if I'm gonna mix 2 tracks and I already have the tempo aligned, so they're playing at the same tempo, but this one is a little bit behind, I just manually give it a nudge forward. Or if it's a little bit too far ahead, I just pull it back a little bit. If you don't want to do that by touching the platter, you can use the minus and the plus button to either bring it back a little bit or slowly nudge it forward. So that is an option. I don't really use it a lot, but it is an option if you don't want to do the manual thing with the platter. Now, I already did this in the beginning. These are the buttons that you use to assign the platters to one of the 4 decks in Serato DJ. You have 4 channels, so now it's on channel 2, and now the platter controls channel 4. Now they make sure that the color is different, so 1 and 2 is white, 3 and 4 are red, so that makes it easier to recognize in an instant which one is playing. And you have a row of buttons right here, and if you're familiar with the original NS7, this little row of buttons was placed right here, and it was used to trigger your hot cues. Now they moved it here, and it still controls your hot cues. So this might be a little bit confusing because I already showed you that you can control your hot cues here, but you also have access to the hot cues over there. I think it's actually pretty cool because this means that I could be in sampler mode and I want to do a trick and I want to start a couple samples, but in the middle of playing with the samples, I want to go back to my first cue point. Now, I could do that with the pads, but it will take some extra work by pressing this, quickly going to the cue, hitting that, going back to the sampler to go back to playing with the samples. So this way, I can play with the samples and at the same time go back to any of these hot cue points. Now, I'm not going to use that a lot, but I think it's a great way to use that space because you're not going to do anything with that space anyway. And because the buttons are quite small, it's not something that you would easily touch by mistake. So yeah, cool little extra feature right there. Now over here you have your sync button, of course, which will automatically beat match for you. So you can always use that, and it might be useful if you're doing something with 4 decks at the same time and you want to make sure that everything really stays synced. You can use sync, but as I always say, make sure that you're also able to beat match by ear, just to be able to do it, and you might find out that it's a lot of fun to do also. Now over here you have your master tempo, and you can also change the pitch range, and above that you have slip mode. When slip mode is active, you can do anything you want with the platter, but the song will keep on playing in the background. What that means is this track can be playing, activate slip mode. I can hold this however long I want, but the song is still playing in the back. So once I let go, it's still playing where it was supposed to be playing. So if I have two songs that are playing together, I'm doing a mix. In the middle of that mix, I could just do that and it will still play where it's supposed to be playing, so your mix won't be interrupted. Now, I don't use it because when I'm touching that platter to do scratches, I don't want it to keep on playing. I want it to stop to do something special, but it could be cool, like I said, in the middle of a mix, just to add a little scratch without messing up your mix. So that's all I want to say about that right now. Now over here we have reverse, and it reverses the whole track and plays it again. But you also have the option to use bleep. Yes, it's really called bleep. It was also on the NS7, and it's a sensor function. Imagine if you're playing at a party, let's say a kid's party, and you loaded a song, you're playing it, and you find out it's the wrong version. It's the dirty version, and it has a couple of cuss words that you really don't want to play in front of kids. This allows you to censor the words. It's going to give the illusion that is reversing the track. That's what it sounds like. But in reality, the track is still playing. So essentially, it's doing the same thing as the slip mode. Now over here, you can adjust a couple things. You can change the way that it starts or stops. I always like to make the stop a little bit longer. I want it to start instantly, but the stop, just give it that turntable feel instead of just stopping at once. Now over here you have your strip search, which allows you to go to any part of the song, the end, the middle, or the beginning by swiping with your finger. To be honest, I never use strip search, but if you don't have cue points in the track yet, you don't have to go to your computer and use the mouse to click to go to a further part in the song, for instance a break. You can just look at the computer for a second and use your finger to quickly go there. So it could be useful in certain situations. Now, you have two special buttons right here, or one actually. The shift button is used to go to secondary functions. So some buttons will have a name at the top, a title like range, and then beneath it has a second function called master tempo. When you use shift, you can access the secondary function. But this button is special. First, I want to talk about the effects section at the top. This will allow you to enable 3 effects and play with the parameters. You have some nice effects in Serato DJ, some nice isotope effects. So you have 3 effects on that side, 3 effects on that side, and you can assign these effects to any of these channels by hitting B for those, or A for those, or like right now, I have both assigned to that channel. So that means you can assign 6 effects to a single channel. And you also have the option to do the same for the master. So for the total output of the controller, you can also say, I want to have 3 or all 6 effects on my master channel. And you see, once you activate that, it will automatically turn these off because it doesn't matter which one here was assigned. It's doing the effect over everything. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. Now let's go to the middle of the unit for a minute, because this is the mixer section, but it's not just the mixer section on the controller, it's also actually a real mixer, because you have the real audio interface in here, and you can't just use it for EQs and stuff to play with the tracks in Serato DJ. You also have inputs to add, for instance, 2 CD players or 2 turntables, and use this as the mixer for those turntables or CD players. So it can be used as a real mixer as well. But you have the EQ section with a nice EQ that goes all the way to kill. That means if you take out all the high, mid, and low, everything is gone. Totally gone. And you have the gain at the top, so you can add even more volume if it's needed. So if your channel faders are all the way up, but the volume's not loud enough or too loud, your gain allows you to adjust that. Now you have a nice filter knob for each channel, and this has a low and a high pass filter. And that sounds very good. Now you have your 4 channel faders. They're not the longest faders. I personally like that because it allows me to do some upward scratching. Some people might prefer longer faders for certain mixes, but to me, they're just fine. And you have your nice crossfader, scratch crossfader, and you can assign that to all channels, or if you're not into the crossfader, you can have it that all 4 channels are just set to through, And when that's done, it doesn't matter which position the crossfader is in. It's all about using the up faders. Of course, for me, I do everything with the crossfader. So when my fader is here, you can hear channel 2 or channel 4. When it's there, you can hear channel 1 or 3, because I mostly use 2 channels. So as you see, there's a lot of stuff you can do with this NS7II. I mean, besides the fact that you have that turntable feel with the moving platters, you have some very good control options with the pads and with the nice effects section and some extra adjustments you can make with the other buttons. But there's a special thing about this controller, and that has something to do with all these knobs that you see right here. We are talking about capacitive touch sensitive knobs. Now what that means is that these knobs, when activated, can sense when they're being touched. And this means that in certain cases, you can do something in an instant without even moving the knob, but just by touching it with your finger. So there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, if I just enable the filter effects, right now, when it's off, this is just your normal filter. When I turn this on, if I do the same thing now, it will activate the filter, but because it feels my fingers, it will also activate a roll effect. And this is what it does. So as you could tell, when I started, it activated the roll, and once you let go, the roll stops and the filter is still active. But I like it. You can have some good fun with just your cue points and that function right there. I could play with that for hours. I really like that. So that is one simple feature that's already cool, that it gives you that extra effect just by the fact that it can sense your touch. Now, let me activate the rest. Right now, I'm gonna start not just the filter roll, but also the other touch sensitive abilities that it has. Right now, the EQ and the filter and the effects are all touch sensitive. So if I want to use the effect now, I don't have to turn it on. I can just touch it, and you can see that it's blinking now, which means that it's active by touch. So and it also works when you just touch the sides. It doesn't matter where you touch it, it can sense it. Now another cool thing is over here I have a reverb effect, and this is what I really like about the touch thing. Sometimes it's cool to have a reverb just on one single sound, which means that you have to activate it and deactivate it real quick. Now instead of having to do on-off type of stuff, I can just touch that button for an instant. So I like it on the snare. So for instance, I love that. Now, like I said, it's the effects, it's the filter, but it's also the EQ. And in this case, if you touch your high, low, or mid, it will kill it instantly. So it will take out all of the bass if I touch the bass, all of the treble if I touch the treble, and all of the mid if I touch the mid, or everything if I touch all three. So sometimes I like to kill the bass just for a second, or you want to have the high out just for a second, and you don't even have to turn the knob, you can just touch it. So bass out, high out, mid out, or everything out. Now that's some very cool stuff, and once you get used to that, you might start to think about innovative ways to use that in some live remixing or just during your normal mixes. So that is definitely something unique to the NS7II. So there you have it, guys. I don't think there's too much I have to add to this. I do want to say that I believe that Numark really did it again. They took everything that was good about the legendary NS7, they improved some of the features, and they added some incredible new features as well. So what you get is a very well built, full-size 4-channel controller for Serato DJ with a lot of functionality. You can control most of the features inside the Serato DJ software right from the controller. And just like on the original NS7, the direct drive motorized moving platters with the vinyl on top replicate that turntable feel really well. So if you're coming from turntables and you want to step into that digital realm, this could be the perfect solution for you. You get to enjoy all the technological advantages of using a controller, but you can still experience that turntable feel. So you're going to have a lot of fun with the moving platters. If you're coming from turntablism and you're into scratching and juggling, this is your best option. There's no other controller that's going to give you this amount of authentic turntable feel. Now you get all that functionality and the build quality, all the in and outputs you need. You also get a fully functional 4-channel mixer so you can add your extra equipment like CD players or turntables, and you get some unique features like the capacitive touch sensitive knobs. And it's also at a very good price. It is a lot of money if it's your first controller, but if you compare it to some of the other controllers out, in the States it's around $1,400, and over here you pay like 1,200 euros. So if you keep into consideration what you get, it's a lot of bang for your buck. So keep that in mind. So let's wrap it up. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the info. If you did, make sure to click that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And if you have any more questions about the NS7II, you know where to reach me, DJTLMTV at DJTLM.com. I'll be back real soon with more videos and a special comparison video with the NS7II and the DDJ-SZ. So stay tuned for that one. I'm out, guys. Peace.